Story 1. Craigslist is not something I would use frequently, maybe once a year at most. But sometimes it's the most convenient option to sell things quickly. However, after the terrifying incident that occurred 3 years ago, I vowed to never use Craigslist again. At 22 years old, I lived in a small house with a roommate for over a year. When my roommate moved out and the lease was ending in a few months, I couldn't afford the property on my own. Finding a new apartment wasn't difficult, but it was much smaller, which meant I had to part ways with my furniture. Our couch was barely used, purchased just a year ago when my roommate moved in. It seemed wasteful to leave it on the side of the road for someone to pick up. Moreover, I needed the extra money for the move, so reluctantly I turned to Craigslist. This was my first time selling something on the site. Usually, I was the one making purchases. I hadn't encountered any strange experiences, except for the inherent awkwardness of being in a stranger's house. However, this time, as the seller, I felt more at ease since the interaction would take place in my own home. It took over 2 weeks for a genuinely interested person to respond to my ad. His name was David, and he explained that he had moved into a new house and needed affordable furniture to fill the space. In our conversation, I mentioned that I was leaving my house due to my roommate's departure and financial constraints. David seemed friendly, so I shared more details than I probably should have. We agreed to meet on a Saturday evening around 6 o'clock, once we were both off work. When the appointed time arrived, I left the front door open and waited anxiously on the couch. But after an hour passed, I grew frustrated and decided to close the front door, assuming he had bailed on me. Moments later, the doorbell rang. It was already 7:30, so I was understandably upset. Nevertheless, I put on a fake smile and opened the door. "I'm David," he said, extending his hand for a handshake. David was a tall, burly man with a wide grin on his face. I shook his hand and invited him inside, leading him to the living room. Just as we were about to discuss the couch, I heard footsteps outside the front door. 2 more men entered, and David introduced them as his buddies who were moving in with him. I nervously replied that it was fine, although deep down, I felt a growing uneasiness. Something about the situation didn't sit right with me. David walked to the other side of the couch and crouched down as if inspecting something. Then he abruptly stood up and pointed to the side. "What's this over here?" he asked. I joined in, trying to see what he was referring to, but I couldn't spot anything unusual. The other 2 men positioned themselves closer, while David stood behind me. Their proximity made me feel powerless and terrified. "I don't see anything," I admitted, feeling their breath on my neck. David persisted, pointing again, urging me to get down and take a closer look. With each passing second, my anxiety intensified. Eventually, I reluctantly knelt down, still unable to detect anything out of the ordinary. The tension in the room was suffocating. Suddenly, David broke the silence, laughing, "I'm just messing with you. There's nothing there." He delivered a firm pat on my back as I stood up. I forced a nervous chuckle and took a few steps away. Glancing at the other men, I noticed their unsettling smiles, as if they were scheming something. Desperate to maintain my composure and find a way out of this alarming situation, I tried to expedite the process. "So, do you like it?" I asked, hoping to distract them. David exchanged a glance with his friends before turning his attention back to me. His previously cheerful expression had transformed into something much more unsettling. A peculiar silence hung in the air as I locked eyes with David, sensing an imminent storm brewing. Without warning, one of the men lunged at me, forcefully pinning me down to the ground. My instinct to resist was swiftly overpowered by his sheer strength, leaving me defenseless and resigned to the hope of avoiding further harm. Meanwhile, David and the other men began ransacking my house, wreaking havoc in every room as they searched for anything valuable. The weight of the man on top of me pressed my head into the unforgiving wooden floor, causing intense pain and terror. Minutes felt like an eternity as I lay there, helpless and overwhelmed. Finally, David's voice resonated from near the front door, signaling the end of their plundering spree. The man restraining me abruptly released his grip and fled the premises. In a state of shock, pain, and terror, I heard the sound of their getaway truck accelerating into the distance. Slowly, I gathered my wits and struggled to my feet. Disoriented and shaken, I stumbled toward the front door, instinctively locking it behind me. Moments later, I contacted the police to report the harrowing ordeal. Unsurprisingly, David turned out to be a false identity. The email address and phone number he provided were untraceable, offering no leads to identify the culprits. Law enforcement collected fingerprints and documented the shoe prints left behind, but the investigation quickly hit a dead end. The only significant lead they discovered was that the shoe prints matched those found at another victim's house a few weeks prior in a similar attack and robbery. It became evident that the perpetrators targeted individuals living alone, which made me regretfully realize how I had inadvertently made myself vulnerable by sharing information about my roommate's departure. The experience left me traumatized, filled with an amalgamation of stress and anger. I had naively trusted the illusion of safety within the confines of my own home, only to be taken advantage of by deceitful strangers. In the aftermath of the traumatic incident, I found myself plagued by the whirlwind of emotions. A violation of my sense of security within the four walls of my own home left me with an unsettling mixture of fear and anger. Sleepless nights were now filled with haunting visions of that fateful encounter, replaying in my mind like a horrifying loop. The profound impact of the ordeal manifested itself in the form of heightened vigilance and a constant state of unease. Each creak of the floorboards, every unexpected sound in the night, sent shivers down my spine. Paranoia crept into the corners of my consciousness, painting innocent faces with an unwarranted cloak of suspicion. The incident became a catalyst for a profound shift in my worldview. I could no longer blindly trust in the goodness of strangers or rely on the assumed safety of my own abode. The scars etched deep within me served as a constant reminder of the vulnerability we all possess, irrespective of the walls that surround us. News stories and online forums echoed similar tales of unsuspecting victims falling prey to criminals lurking behind anonymous online profiles. I realized that I had narrowly escaped a potentially far worse fate, as I could have easily become another statistic in the annals of unsolved crimes. The experience propelled me to share my story with others, to spread awareness about the risks associated with online transactions and interactions. I became an advocate for personal safety, urging friends, family, and even strangers to exercise caution and take necessary precautions when engaging in face-to-face exchanges with unknown individuals. The healing process was slow and arduous. Professional counseling sessions became a lifeline, providing a safe space to untangle the tangled web of emotions and fears that had ensnared my mind. With time, I began to rebuild the shattered fragments of my life, piece by fragile piece. Despite the lingering trauma, I resolved to move forward with a renewed sense of resilience and strength. I vowed to never let fear dictate my actions, but to approach life's uncertainties with a careful balance of caution and confidence. The incident had left an indelible mark on my psyche, serving as a poignant reminder of the darkness that coexists with the light. Through my journey of recovery, I discovered a hidden wellspring of inner strength, forged through adversity and adversity alone. And so, I emerged from the harrowing experience as a survivor, determined to turn my pain into purpose. My advocacy work grew, reaching a wider audience as I shared my cautionary tale through local news outlets and community gatherings. It became my mission to empower others with the knowledge and tools to protect themselves in an increasingly interconnected yet treacherous world. In the end, my encounter with the dangers lurking within the shadows of Craigslist became a transformative chapter in my life. Though scarred, I emerged with a newfound resilience, armed with the wisdom to navigate the world's perils, one cautious step at a time. A few years ago, I found myself in a precarious financial situation, desperate for a reliable vehicle without breaking the bank. With a glimmer of hope, I turned to the infamous Craigslist, notorious for its bargain deals and dubious transactions. Ignoring the cautionary tales, I convinced myself that this could be my saving grace. Scrolling through the listings, I stumbled upon a truck priced at a mere $4,000. The seller promptly responded to my inquiry, seemingly genuine and forthcoming about the vehicle's flaws. Despite the warning signs, my desperation clouded my judgment, and I agreed to meet him at a local overcame, the designated rendezvous point. Arriving early, I anxiously awaited his arrival, mentally preparing myself for the purchase. As he finally arrived, we engaged in casual conversation, further discussing the truck's history and minor hiccups it had encountered. Eager to get behind the wheel, I requested a test drive, to which he agreed, suggesting a less congested parking lot nearby. Instead of calling for an Uber, he casually proposed that we ride together, citing the close proximity of the destination. Inexperienced and hesitant to offend, I reluctantly accepted, dismissing my growing discomfort. Naivety often accompanies youth, and my trust in the stranger prevailed despite the mounting warning signs. As we embarked on our journey, the supposed short distance extended beyond what I had anticipated, weaving through unfamiliar streets. Unease washed over me, overshadowed by misplaced trust and my desperate desire for a reliable vehicle. Finally, we arrived at an isolated parking lot, far from the prying eyes of passers-by, an alarming departure from our original agreement. Sensing something amiss, a flicker of intuition sparked within me. It was then that he suggested we switch seats for the test drive. His peculiar request raised my guard, but I brushed it off, assuming it to be a common practice. I should have known better, should have recognized the danger lurking beneath his seemingly genuine facade. As we awkwardly exchanged positions, he tossed the keys toward me, a poorly executed attempt at nonchalance. Unfortunately, his aim fell short, scattering the keys on the ground just out of my reach. Instinctively, I leaned down to retrieve them, only to be blindsided by the forceful impact of his foot striking my side. Before I could regain my bearings, he pounced upon me, his hands swiftly snatching my wallet from my back pocket. With a swift retreat, he sprinted back toward the truck, leaving me disoriented and stranded in the desolate parking lot. My feeble attempt to salvage the situation failed miserably, clutching the worthless keys he had tossed in my direction. This belief washed over me as I realized that the keys he threw were likely nothing more than cheap imitations. His deception had left me stranded, robbed of both my money and any hope of pursuing justice. With a sense of helplessness, I pondered my misfortune, realizing that the encounter had unfolded too swiftly for me to gather any vital information. In a desperate bid to regain some semblance of control, I quickly cancelled my debit card, fearful of the stranger's intentions to exploit my financial vulnerability. Reeling from the shock, I dialed the authorities, reporting the incident and providing a vague description of the rusted white truck and its middle-aged, average-looking owner. Unfortunately, it proved futile as the perpetrator had cleverly covered his tracks. The aftermath of this harrowing ordeal left me bereft of my hard-earned $4,000, forced to endure the agonizing wait for a replacement card while facing the arduous process of obtaining a new license. The elusive thief had effectively disappeared into the digital abyss, his fake name and email account vanishing as quickly as they had appeared. The investigation led to dead ends, leaving me to bear the weight of my own gullibility and the bitter taste of a hard lesson learned. Reflecting on the ordeal, the moral of the story became glaringly clear. Craigslist is a breeding ground for scams and deception. I had fallen victim to the allure of a bargain, blinded by my own desperation. The world of online classifieds harbored hidden dangers, where innocent intentions could easily be exploited. In the aftermath, I vowed never to use Craigslist again, warning others of its inherent risks. The convenience it offered was far outweighed by the potential for treachery. My encounter served as a harsh reminder that caution must always prevail in the face of enticing deals and seemingly trustworthy strangers. The scars left by this traumatic experience ran deeper than mere financial loss. It shattered my sense of security and eroded my trust in humanity. I was left grappling with feelings of anger, regret, and self-blame. I cursed my own naivety, vowing to educate myself and others about the perils lurking within the shadows of online transactions. Moving forward, I became an advocate for safer alternatives, urging individuals to explore reputable platforms and take necessary precautions when engaging in online transactions. Awareness became my armor, and I shared my cautionary tale with friends, family, and even strangers, hoping to spare them the pain I had endured. The incident prompted a profound shift in my perspective, instilling in me a newfound skepticism and wariness of the world. It served as a reminder that we must remain vigilant, particularly when our vulnerabilities are exposed. Trust should be earned, not blindly granted to unfamiliar faces behind computer screens. Although scarred by my encounter, I refused to let it define me. Instead, I channeled my anger and frustration into resilience, determined to rebuild what was lost. With time, I mustered the strength to move past the shadows of that fateful day, using it as fuel to propel myself toward a future marked by caution, wisdom, and self-preservation. In the end, my encounter with the deceptive seller on Craigslist left an indelible mark on my life. It was a harrowing tale of trust misplaced and the repercussions of unchecked desperation. Through sharing my story, I hope to spare others from a similar fate, reminding them to tread carefully in the vast realm of online commerce. In the wake of my harrowing encounter, I embarked on a personal mission to raise awareness about the dangers of online transactions. I became involved in local community forums and online groups, sharing my cautionary tale and cautioning others to exercise utmost vigilance when engaging in similar transactions. My efforts didn't go unnoticed, as my story resonated with many individuals who had their own unsettling experiences with online classifieds. Together, we formed a support network, sharing tips, resources, and stories of survival. Our collective mission was to empower others with knowledge and equip them with the tools necessary to navigate the murky waters of online commerce. I also reached out to local law enforcement agencies, urging them to prioritize cases involving online scams and fraudulent activities. While the resolution of my own case had been disheartening, I was determined to advocate for change and push for stricter regulations to protect innocent victims. As time went on, I became acquainted with others who had encountered similar ordeals. We formed a tight-knit community, organizing workshops and seminars to educate people on how to spot red flags, conduct safe transactions, and protect themselves from potential harm. Our shared experiences created a bond that transcended the boundaries of our individual encounters, as we united in our quest to make a difference. Through my advocacy work, I discovered that my own healing process was intertwined with helping others. Sharing my story not only served as a warning but also provided solace to those who had gone through similar traumatic experiences. In their eyes, I became a symbol of resilience and the embodiment of turning pain into purpose. Over time, my efforts garnered attention beyond my local community. I was invited to speak at conferences, participate in panel discussions, and even collaborate with organizations dedicated to online safety. Together, we worked to raise awareness on a larger scale, targeting not only individuals but also policymakers and tech companies, urging them to prioritize user safety and implement stricter security measures. While I couldn't undo the past, I found solace in the impact I was making in the present. My story had transformed from a tale of personal tragedy to a catalyst for change. It became a beacon of caution, illuminating the potential dangers that lurk beneath the surface of seemingly innocent online transactions. As I continued to share my experiences and advocate for safer practices, I witnessed a shift in public perception. More people began to question the risks associated with online classifieds, prompting them to seek safer alternatives and exercise greater caution. The ripple effect of my advocacy work reinforced my belief in the power of sharing stories and standing up against injustice. In the end, my journey from victim to advocate was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Despite the scars I carried, I refused to let fear define me. Instead, I chose to transform my pain into a force for good, shining a light on the dark underbelly of online transactions and empowering others to navigate the digital realm with vigilance and resilience. While the trauma of my encounter would forever remain a part of my story, I found solace in knowing that my experiences had the power to protect others. The world of online commerce may always carry inherent risks, but armed with knowledge and caution, we can navigate its treacherous waters and emerge stronger on the other side. Story 3. I used to work for a large maid company, but I left after a former coworker revealed that she was earning triple the amount by listing ads on Craigslist marketplace and working independently. Intrigued, I decided to explore this avenue myself. For nearly 7 months, I enjoyed great financial success without any unusual incidents. Little did I know that everything was about to take a dark turn. One day, I received an email from someone requesting my cleaning services for their house. The usual routine was to either visit the house for an estimate or have the client send a video walkthrough. At my previous company, we followed a similar procedure, but now I charged a better price, and clients felt more comfortable having the same person clean their house every week. The man interested in my services sent me a video showcasing his already clean house. It wasn't uncommon for clients to desire maintenance and attention to detail, so I agreed to clean his house. We set a date and time, and a few days later, I arrived at his residence ready to begin the cleaning. He greeted me at the door and led me upstairs, where I would start and work my way down. However, that's when everything took a disturbing turn. Instead of leaving as I began cleaning, he lingered, watching my every move. While older women occasionally exhibited controlling behavior, this man's gaze felt more unsettling, as if he wasn't interested in what I was cleaning but rather fixated on me. Feeling uncomfortable, I asked if there was anything else he needed me to do. He hesitated for a moment before responding. "You know, when I saw your ad on Craigslist, I knew I had to have you." Initially, I brushed it off as a misguided comment, assuming he merely believed I excelled at cleaning due to stereotypes. I chose not to dwell on it and continued with my work, feigning gratitude. As I proceeded to clean, he remained in the room, shifting his attention to a bed across the hallway. The situation was becoming increasingly unsettling, and the thought of him watching me for hours filled me with unease. Trying to create some distance, I vacuumed behind the door, leaving it slightly cracked to obstruct his view. I just needed to get through the day, get paid, and avoid returning to this place. Moving on to the bathroom adjacent to the room, I scrubbed grout when I sensed his gaze once again. I turned around, and there he stood in the doorway. Awkwardly, he apologized, stating that I should leave the vanity untouched as it belonged to his deceased wife. Something felt off, though. He had mentioned that his wife passed away in 2009, but there were makeup products on the counter that hadn't been released until years later. If I had any doubts before, they were amplified at that moment. The situation had become even more unsettling. Thankfully, for the remainder of my time upstairs, he refrained from looking or speaking to me. Dread filled me as I realized I still had to descend to the lower floor to finish the job. Entering the kitchen, another oddity caught my attention. There were no pictures adorning the walls, a rarity in the homes I had cleaned. Even individuals living alone usually had photographs or holiday cards displayed. This absence struck a nerve within me. Determined to complete the task swiftly, I decided to skip some areas and reduce the cost for him. However, just as I made that decision, he appeared in the archway and asked for a favor. With hesitation, I inquired about his request. He explained that he knew the basement was off limits, but he had forgotten about guests coming over and needed the pool table area quickly vacuumed. I mentioned being on a tight schedule but suggested returning the following day to clean the entire basement instead. I hoped this would buy me some time and allow me to escape the uncomfortable situation. However, his demeanor suddenly shifted, and he insisted that I should only focus on the floors and questioned why I wouldn't do it immediately. As he persisted, mentioning how important it was for him and his late wife, I realized that something sinister was at play. His wife, the one he claimed had passed away years ago, was clearly being used as a twisted manipulation tactic. Fear washed over me as I grasped the gravity of the situation, unsure of what he had planned. Thinking quickly, I pretended to receive an urgent phone call and hurriedly moved to another room. In a hushed voice, I explained the situation to a friend in Spanish, hoping that he wouldn't understand. Worried for my safety, my friend agreed to come to the address and ensure my well-being when I left. Ending the call, I mustered up the courage to inform him that I had a family emergency and had to leave immediately, promising to return the next day to complete the job, a blatant lie. He stared at me with an icy cold gaze, his true intentions seeping through his facade. "Don't bother," he replied, his words dripping with menace. Feeling a sense of relief that I could finally escape, I swiftly gathered my cleaning supplies and hurried towards the exit. Outside, my friend had arrived just in time, parked nearby to ensure my safety. The man continued to watch me through the window, his unnerving stare burning into my memory. Once I reached the safety of my home, I wasted no time in contacting the police to report the disturbing encounter. However, they explained that without any actual crime being committed, their hands were tied. Their advice was simply to avoid returning to that house, an obvious decision I had already made. Reflecting on the incident, I realized the importance of trusting one's instincts, especially when providing services through platforms like Craigslist. It served as a chilling reminder that it's impossible to discern the intentions of strangers fully. I vowed to always listen to my gut and take precautions, such as informing someone of the address I'm visiting and my expected departure time. I may never know the true intentions of that man or what he had planned for me in that basement, but I hope that no one else falls victim to his twisted schemes. The experience left me shaken, but it also served as a cautionary tale for anyone venturing into similar service-based professions. In the end, I chose to see this harrowing encounter as a lesson, a reminder to be vigilant and prioritize personal safety above all else. And as I continue my journey, I carry with me the resolve to never let my guard down and to trust my instincts when faced with the unknown. Days turned into weeks, and the unsettling encounter with the man in the house haunted my thoughts. I couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched or the chilling words he had uttered. The incident had left an indelible mark on my psyche, causing me to question my safety and security in the line of work I had chosen. Seeking solace and support, I confided in my closest friends about the terrifying ordeal. They offered words of comfort and reassurance, urging me to prioritize my well-being above all else. Their unwavering support gave me the strength to carry on, to regain my confidence, and to resume my work, albeit with a newfound sense of caution. However, the incident had left a deep impact on my trust in clients, especially those I met through online platforms. I became more selective, taking extra precautions and thoroughly researching potential clients before accepting any job. Safety became my top priority, and I insisted on meeting clients in public places before visiting their homes, ensuring a level of familiarity and security. In addition to these changes, I also sought self-defense classes to empower myself physically and mentally. Learning techniques to protect myself and practicing situational awareness became essential parts of my routine. I refused to let fear dictate my life, but instead channeled it into resilience and preparedness. As time went on, I found solace in the support of a community of service providers who shared their own stories and offered guidance. Together, we created networks of trust, sharing information about problematic clients and warning others of potential dangers. This support system became a lifeline, providing a sense of solidarity and a means to stay vigilant against potential threats. Despite the lingering unease, I continued to provide my services, albeit with a newfound sense of empowerment and determination. The experience served as a constant reminder of the importance of personal safety and the need to trust my instincts. Each day, I reminded myself that I was stronger than my fears and that my dedication to my work should never compromise my well-being. Over time, the memory of that harrowing encounter began to fade, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and resilience. The lessons learned from that incident became an integral part of my professional journey, shaping me into a more cautious, confident, and self-aware service provider. While I couldn't change the past, I strive to make a difference for others in similar situations. I became an advocate for safety in the industry, sharing my story to raise awareness and encourage fellow service providers to prioritize their well-being. Together, we work to create resources, guidelines, and support networks, fostering a safer environment for all. In the end, the horror story that unfolded in that house served as a catalyst for personal growth and a testament to the strength of the human spirit. It reminded me that even in the face of darkness, we have the power to rise above our fears, protect ourselves, and forge a path toward a brighter, safer future.